Strip her of that ridiculous uniform, Celestine Moreau hisses, her manicured fingers gesturing dismissively toward the coffee-stained apron. Let's see what this common little thief is really hiding. The cafe erupts in gasps and whispered speculation. Elowen Hart feels the blood drain from her face. Ironic, really, considering what flows through her veins, as 3 security guards advance toward her. Their hands reach for her shoulders, for the ties of her apron, and something ancient inside her chest constricts with panic she hasn't felt in a decade. She's kept her secret for 10 years. 10 careful, measured years of mediocrity, of being invisible, of serving coffee to people who never looked at her twice. Now, in one moment of manufactured crisis, it's all about to unravel. The Sterling Tower Cafe sits on the ground floor of one of Manhattan's most exclusive corporate buildings, and Elowen has worked there for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. She remembers the date she started because it was the first time in 7 years she'd dared to work somewhere this visible, this public. But she'd been desperate, her savings running thin, and the cafe manager hadn't asked too many questions about her spotty employment history. She should have known better, should have stayed in the shadows, should have kept moving like she'd learned to do after that first terrifying discovery when she was 23 years old, when she'd stumbled bleeding and broken at the bottom of a ravine after a hiking accident, only to wake hours later completely healed, her clothes soaked in blood but her skin unmarked, pristine and humming with something that felt both ancient and utterly wrong. The security guard's hand closes around her upper arm. His grip is firm, professional, and Elowen's pulse hammers against her throat. She can feel every eye in the cafe on her, the morning regulars who come for their complicated espresso orders, the young executives who barely notice her existence, and most dangerously, the cluster of impeccably dressed individuals gathered near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Among them stands Davarin Thorne. He's the reason Celestine is here at all, the reason for this theatrical accusation, this manufactured drama designed to humiliate and destroy. Because Celestine Moreau, daughter of the Moreau Diamond Dynasty, has decided that Davorin belongs to her, and any woman who catches his attention, even accidentally, must be eliminated, even a nobody waitress who's never spoken more than 3 words to the man. Davorin doesn't look like a king, not in the traditional sense. He wears a charcoal suit, tailored so precisely, it seems to have been crafted on his body, and his dark hair is pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and aristocratic lines. His eyes are gray, the color of storm clouds over deep water, and in the 3 months since he started taking his morning meetings in this cafe, Elowen has been very, very careful never to let those eyes linger on her too long. She knows what he is. Felt it the first time he walked through the door, her blood recognizing something in him that her rational mind wanted to deny. Ancient power wrapped in modern sophistication. Danger dressed in civilized clothes. Vampire. Not just any vampire. Even with her limited knowledge of their world, a world she's spent a decade avoiding, she can sense the authority radiating from him. The way other people unconsciously defer to his presence. The way conversations quiet when he enters a room. I saw her take it, Celestine is saying, her voice carrying that particular pitch of righteous indignation that wealthy women weaponize so effectively. She holds up a diamond bracelet, the stones catching the morning light and throwing rainbows across the cafe walls. My bracelet. I left it on the table for just a moment when I went to take a phone call, and when I returned, it was gone. Then I saw her. She points one perfectly manicured finger at Elowen, tucking something into her pocket. It's a lie, a complete fabrication. Elowen hasn't been near Celestine's table all morning, but who will believe the word of a waitress over a Moreau? Miss Hart, the head of security says, his tone attempting diplomacy, but landing somewhere closer to accusation. If you could please empty your pockets, we can clear this up quickly. Elowen's hands tremble as she reaches into the pockets of her black work pants. She knows what she'll find. Nothing, because she didn't take anything, but that won't matter. Celestine has planned this too carefully. There will be a bracelet somehow. Planted evidence to seal her fate. But it's not the threat of false arrest that makes her heart race. It's the other danger. The one only she understands. Her secret isn't just that she heals impossibly fast, or that she hasn't aged a day since that accident 10 years ago. It's that her blood, when exposed to air, doesn't stay red. Within seconds it begins to shimmer, taking on an opalescent quality that no human blood should possess. It's beautiful and unsettling, completely unexplainable, and she has spent a decade making sure no one ever sees it. She's explored the boundaries of her new reality exactly once since that discovery, alone, trying to comprehend its nature. She'd watched in intense fascination as a strange energy pulsed within her, manifesting as an otherworldly shimmer. She'd healed before she could even reach for a bandage, the skin knitting itself together so quickly, she'd wondered if she'd imagined the cut entirely. Vampire blood, she'd later learned through careful, paranoid research in the darkest corners of the internet, or something like it. A dormant bloodline activated by trauma, by the proximity to death. Immortal blood that marked her as something other than human, something that would make her a target for those who would use her, study her, or simply eliminate the anomaly she represented. "Nothing," she whispers, showing her empty palms. Relief tries to surface, but she knows better, knows this isn't over. Celestine's perfectly shaped eyebrows rise with theatrical surprise. Check her apron. She must have hidden it there. The security guard reaches for the apron ties, and Elowen feels panic claw up her throat. Not because of any bracelet, she knows she's innocent, but because of what comes next. She can see it playing out like a nightmare in slow motion. Celestine won't be satisfied with a simple search. Women like her never are. She'll push further, create more drama, and in the chaos, "Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private." Davrin Thorne's voice cuts through the tension like a blade through silk. He hasn't moved from his position near the windows, but suddenly everyone is looking at him. "Ms. Moreau, I'm sure you don't wish to create a scene in a public establishment." Celestine turns to him with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Davrin, darling, I'm simply trying to recover my property. Surely you don't expect me to let a common thief—" "I expect you," he interrupts, his tone remaining perfectly polite, while somehow conveying absolute authority, "to handle this with discretion. If Ms. Hart has your bracelet, it will be found. If she doesn't, you'll owe her an apology, and likely face consequences for false accusation and harassment." The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. Celestine's smile becomes fixed, brittle. "Are you defending her? A waitress?" "I'm suggesting," Davrin says, finally moving, crossing the distance between the windows and the gathered crowd, with fluid grace that makes Elowen's blood hum with recognition, "that mob justice and public humiliation are beneath you. Or they should be." He stops 3 feet from Elowen. This close, she can smell him. Something expensive and masculine with an undertone of darkness that makes her hindbrain scream danger even as her body responds, with an awareness she absolutely cannot afford to feel. His gray eyes meet hers for the first time ever. Really meet them. And something passes between them that makes her breath catch. Recognition. Not of her specifically, but of something in her that calls to something in him. His gaze sharpens, focusing with an intensity that makes her feel stripped bare despite being fully clothed. "You're trembling," he observes quietly. "Are you afraid?" "Yes, terrified, but not for the reasons he thinks." "I didn't take anything," she manages to say, her voice steadier than she feels. "I've never stolen anything in my life." "I believe you." The words are simple, matter-of-fact, and they land with the weight of absolute truth in the space between them. Celestine makes a sound of outrage. "You believe her? You've known me for years, Davrin. You've spoken to this girl, what? Never? And you take her word over mine? I take the word of innocence over the performance of persecution." He doesn't look away from Elowen. "Ms. Hart, would you consent to a thorough search, with a female security officer in a private room, with cameras recording to protect your rights? It's a trap. It feels like a trap. But refusing would look like guilt, and she can't afford that either." "Yes," Elowen says. "Fine, search whatever you want. You won't find anything because I didn't take anything." The female security officer appears from somewhere in the back of the cafe, middle-aged, professional, with kind eyes that offer Elowen the first scrap of sympathy she's received since this nightmare began. "This way, miss," the officer says gently, gesturing toward the back hallway that leads to the manager's office. Elowen moves to follow, but Celestine isn't finished. She steps forward, blocking the path, and there's something vicious in her perfect face now, the mask of civilized outrage slipping to reveal the cruelty beneath. "You know what I think?" Celestine says, her voice dropping to a register that only those closest can hear. "I think you're exactly the kind of desperate little nobody who would do anything for attention, who would steal, who would seduce, who would spread your legs for any man with power if you thought it would lift you out of your pathetic existence." The words are designed to wound, to provoke. Elowen has heard variations of this her entire life, before the blood, before the change, when she was just a poor kid from nowhere trying to survive. She's learned to let insults slide off her like water. But then Celestine does something Elowen doesn't expect. She reaches out, her hand moving faster than anticipated, and shoves Elowen backward. Hard. Elowen stumbles, her hip catching the corner of a table. Sharp pain explodes through her side as the table's edge drives into her flesh, with enough force to bruise, or would, on a normal person. She catches herself before falling completely, but the damage is done. She feels it immediately. The warm trickle of blood from where her hip struck the table's corner. Not much. Probably just a small cut. The kind of thing that would barely be noticeable on anyone else. But on her, it's everything. "Celestine!" Daverin's voice cracks like a whip, all polite pretense abandoned. "That's assault." "She fell," Celestine says, but there's satisfaction in her eyes. She wanted this. Wanted to push, to break, to force a reaction. Elowen presses her hand to her side, feeling the wet warmth seeping through her shirt. Her heart hammers. She has maybe seconds before the blood begins to change. Maybe less. She needs to get out of here. Needs to... "You're bleeding," Daverin says, and he's suddenly right there, his hand reaching toward her with concern that seems genuine and absolutely catastrophic. "I'm fine," Elowen says quickly, stepping back, keeping her hand pressed firmly against the wound. "It's nothing. Just a scratch." But Daverin is already moving, his hand closing gently around her wrist. Not forcefully, but with clear intent. "Let me see." "No," she says, and there's desperation in the word now. "Please, I'm fine. I just need... Ms. Hart." His voice is soft but immovable. "You're injured. Let me see." Their eyes meet again, and this time she sees something in his gaze that makes her blood run cold. Suspicion? Curiosity? The focused attention of a predator that's caught an unusual scent. He knows something is wrong. Maybe not what. Not yet. But he senses it. "Remove your hand," he says quietly. It's not quite a command. Not quite a request. Something in between that her body responds to before her mind can form objections. Her hand falls away. The blood is visible through her white shirt, a spreading stain just above her hip. Red. Still red. She has seconds. Maybe. Daverin's hand moves toward the hem of her shirt, clearly intending to lift it, to see the wound, and Elowen's panic crystallizes into action. She twists away, fast, putting distance between them. "Don't touch me," she says, and her voice comes out harder than intended. "I don't need help. I don't need anything from you, or from her, or from anyone. I just want to be left alone." The cafe has gone completely silent, everyone watching, witnesses to her unraveling. Celestine laughs, the sound sharp and bright. "See? Guilty conscience. She's hiding something." "She's hurt," Daverin says, and there's an edge to his voice now that makes Elowen's ancient blood sing with recognition of danger. "She needs medical attention. I need you all to just stop," Elowen says, backing toward the hallway, toward escape. "I'll go to the hospital if I need to. I'll submit to your search, but right now, I need to use the bathroom, and I need everyone to stop looking at me." She doesn't wait for permission, turns and walks as quickly as she can without running toward the back hallway. Behind her, she hears Devoren say something in a tone too low to make out, and Celestine's responding protest, but she's not stopping. Can't stop. The bathroom is single occupancy, thank God. She closes the door and locks it, her hands shaking so badly it takes 2 tries. Leans back against the door and closes her eyes, breathing hard. Safe. She's safe, for the moment. She lifts her shirt with trembling fingers and looks at the wound. It's already healing, the skin knitting together with visible speed. But it's the blood that makes her breath catch. It's not red anymore. The smear on her skin shimmers like oil on water, like pearls ground to liquid, like moonlight given substance. Beautiful and impossible and damning. She grabs paper towels, wets them, and scrubs at her skin frantically. The blood washes away easily, too easily, like it's not quite physical, like it exists partially in some other state of matter. Within seconds, her skin is clean, unmarked, perfect. As if she was never hurt at all, which is exactly the problem. A knock on the door makes her jump. "Ms. Hart?" It's the female security officer. "Are you all right in there?" "Yes," Elowen calls back, her voice only slightly unsteady. "Just cleaning up. I'll be right out." She checks herself in the mirror. Her shirt is stained, but the stain looks like normal blood now that it's separated from her body, drying to rust brown like it should. Her face is pale, her dark hair escaping from its ponytail, her green eyes too wide in her face. She looks exactly like what she's supposed to be, a frightened waitress having the worst day of her life. She can do this. She can hold it together, get through the search, prove her innocence, go home, and never come back. Start over. Again, like she's done before. The story of her life, written in a series of escapes and reinventions. She takes a deep breath, straightens her spine, and opens the door. The security officer stands in the hallway, her expression professional but sympathetic. "Ready?" "Yes." They walk to the manager's office together. The search is quick, thorough, and exactly as humiliating as expected. They find nothing, of course, because there's nothing to find. The officer is professional about it, but Elowen still feels the violation of having a stranger's hands checking every pocket, every seam, even asking her to remove her shoes. When it's over, the officer gives her a small, apologetic smile. "You're clear. I'll report to Mr. Thorne in security. For what it's worth, I didn't think you took anything. Ms. Moreau has a reputation for these kinds of accusations." "Thank you," Elowen says quietly. She expects to be sent back to the cafe, or more likely told to collect her things and leave. Instead, the officer escorts her to one of the building's small conference rooms. Inside, Devoren Thorne sits at the head of a glossy table, looking like he owns not just the room, but the entire building. Which, Elowen realizes with sinking dread, he probably does. The officer nods to him. She's clean. No bracelet, no other items that don't belong to her. "Thank you, Officer Chen," Devoren says. "Please inform Ms. Moreau of the results. And tell building security that Ms. Moreau is no longer welcome in the Sterling Tower Cafe. If she wishes to contest that decision, she can contact my lawyers." Officer Chen's professional mask cracks enough to show a small, satisfied smile. "Yes, sir." She leaves, closing the door behind her. Elowen stands frozen near the entrance, acutely aware that she's now alone with one of the most dangerous beings she's ever encountered. Her instincts scream at her to run, but there's nowhere to go. The door is closed. He's between her and escape. And more than that, she can feel the weight of his attention on her, like a physical thing. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a chair. "I'd rather stand." "Ms. Hart." He says her name like he's tasting it. "You've had a traumatic morning. You've been falsely accused, assaulted, and humiliated in front of your workplace. Please, sit." It's the please that does it. The unexpected courtesy in a situation where he could simply command and expect obedience. She sits, perching on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. Devoren studies her with those storm-gray eyes, and she forces herself to meet his gaze. She's spent 10 years learning how to seem normal, how to hide in plain sight. She won't break now. "Are you hurt?" he asks. "No." You were bleeding. It was just a scratch. It's fine now. May I see? No. The word comes out sharper than intended. She modulates her tone, adds explanation. I'm fine. Really. It's not even bleeding anymore. His expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes sharpens. You healed very quickly. It's not a question. It's an observation, delivered in a tone that's almost casual, but lands with the weight of accusation. Alowan's heart rate spikes, but she keeps her expression neutral. I heal normal. It wasn't a bad cut. You saw blood and assumed worse than it was. The sound is non-committal. He leans back in his chair, the picture of relaxed power. Tell me, Ms. Hart, how long have you worked in my cafe? His cafe, of course. 3 years, give or take. And before that? Other service jobs. I move around a lot. Why? Because staying in one place too long means people start to notice she doesn't age. Because putting down roots means forming connections, and connections mean vulnerability. Because the thought of anyone discovering what she is fills her with existential terror. I like change, she says instead. New cities, new experiences. He doesn't believe her. She can see it in his face. You're lying. The blunt statement sends ice down her spine. Excuse me? You're not a bad liar, he continues conversationally. Your voice stays steady, your expression controlled. But your heart rate increases, and there's a micro-expression of fear around your eyes that you can't quite suppress. So I'll ask again, why do you move around so much? Elowen stands abruptly. I don't have to answer your questions. The search cleared me. I'm free to go. You are, he agrees, but makes no move to stop her when she heads for the door. Then, just as her hand closes around the handle, he says, Your blood smells wrong. She freezes. Not bad, he continues, his tone almost academic. Just different. I noticed it the moment Celestine pushed you. Everyone else smelled the blood and dismissed it. Copper and salt, standard human biology. But underneath that, something else. Something that made every instinct I have pay attention. Elowen doesn't turn around, doesn't move, barely breathes. I've lived a very long time, Ms. Hart, Davern says softly. I've encountered many unusual things. But your blood... She hears the chair move as he stands. Your blood smells like memory. Like antiquity. Like something that shouldn't exist anymore. I don't know what you're talking about, she manages to say. Don't you? Footsteps behind her, coming closer. I think you do. I think you've known for a while that you're different. That something about you doesn't fit the normal pattern of human existence. And I think you're terrified that someone like me has noticed. Someone like me. He's not even pretending to be human anymore. What do you want? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. The same thing you want, he says, and he's close now, close enough that she can feel the unnatural coolness radiating from him. Answers. You want to know what you are. I want to know what you are. Perhaps we can help each other. I'm not interested in help, Elowen says. I'm interested in being left alone. That's no longer an option. There's regret in his voice, genuine regret. Celestine saw you bleed. She may not have understood what she was seeing, but she's not stupid. She'll wonder why I defended you. She'll look into your background, and when she finds gaps, because there will be gaps, won't there? She'll dig deeper. And the Moreau family has resources that make my corporation look like a lemonade stand. Fear crystallizes into cold certainty in Elowen's chest. He's right. Celestine won't let this go. She made an enemy today without even trying, and that enemy has the money and motivation to unravel her entire, carefully constructed life. So what? Elowen asks bitterly. You're offering protection? At what price? The price, Devoren says, is truth. Tell me what you are, and I'll ensure Celestine and anyone else who might threaten you finds themselves preoccupied with other concerns. Elowen finally turns to face him. He's standing close, Too close by human standards, but somehow exactly the right distance for the honest conversation they're having. His face is impassive, but his eyes hold something that might be genuine curiosity, or might be hunger. She's not sure which would be worse. And if I refuse? Then you'll leave here, disappear, start over somewhere else like I suspect you've done before. And maybe you'll be lucky. Maybe Celestine will forget about you. Maybe no one else will notice what I noticed today. He pauses. Or maybe someone less benevolent than me will catch your scent and decide you're a threat. Or a resource. Or a curiosity worth collecting. The truth of his words settles over her like a shroud. She's been running for 10 years, and for 10 years she's been lucky. But luck runs out. She knows that better than anyone. I don't know what I am, she says finally, and it feels like defeat and relief in equal measure to say it out loud. 10 years ago, I had an accident, fell down a ravine while hiking alone, broke bones, lost blood, should have died. She takes a shaky breath. Instead, I healed. Completely. Impossibly. And my blood? She touches her side where the wound was, where the impossible blood briefly showed itself. My blood isn't normal. When it's exposed to air, it changes, becomes something else. Daverin's expression shifts, interest sharpening to laser focus. Show me. What? Show me, he repeats. A small cut, just enough to demonstrate. I need to see. Every instinct screams at her to refuse. But what's the point? He already knows, already suspects. And he's right about Celestine, about the danger of remaining exposed and alone. With trembling hands, Elowen pulls a pen from her pocket. It's cheap plastic, but the point is sharp enough. She presses it against the pad of her thumb, wincing as it breaks the skin. Blood wells up, red and normal for exactly 3 seconds. Then it begins to change. The red fades, replaced by an opalescent shimmer that seems to contain all colors, and no colors at once. It catches the fluorescent light of the conference room and transforms it into something beautiful and otherworldly. Like crushed pearls mixed with moonlight, mixed with the aurora borealis compressed into liquid form. Daverin leans closer, his expression one of absolute fascination. Extraordinary, he breathes. May I? Before she can answer, he's already moving. Takes her hand in his skin cool against hers, and lifts her bleeding thumb to his face. For one heart-stopping moment, she thinks he's going to taste it, and she has no idea what will happen if he does. Instead, he simply studies it, his gray eyes reflecting the strange light of her blood. This is ichor, he says softly. Not human blood, not vampire blood. Something older, something from before. Before what? Before the divisions. Before humans and vampires and all the other creatures of darkness split into separate species. He looks up at her, and there's wonder in his expression now. You carry primordial blood, the blood of the first beings. The ancestors from which all of us descended. Elowen's mind reels. That's impossible. Is it? You exist. Your blood exists. Impossible is simply another word for not yet understood. He releases her hand gently. Watch! She looks down at her thumb. The cut is already closing, the skin knitting together with visible speed. Within seconds it's healed completely, not even a scar remaining. The blood on her skin remains opalescent for a moment longer, then fades back to rust red as it dries, losing its connection to her living essence. How did this happen? Daverin asks. You said an accident? What kind? I told you, a fall while hiking. I was alone. Stupid. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Fell maybe 40 feet down a rocky ravine. Woke up hours later completely healed. And before the fall? Anything unusual in your ancestry? Family history of longevity? Unexplained abilities? Elowen laughs, the sound bitter. I grew up in foster care. No family history, no records. No idea who my parents were or why they gave me up. I'm a ghost in the system, and I've been a ghost ever since. Something shifts in Daverin's expression. If she didn't know better, she'd call it sympathy. That must have been difficult. It was life. You adapt. She wraps her arms around herself, suddenly cold. So, what now? You know what I am, or what I might be. What do you do with that information? I protect you, he says simply, and you let me study your condition. Not invasively, he adds quickly, seeing her expression. No laboratories or experiments, just observation, questions, perhaps research into ancient texts and bloodline records. There may be others like you. There may be answers about your origins. And in exchange, you have the protection of the Thorn name and resources. Anyone who wishes to harm you will have to go through me first. That includes Celestine, her family, and any other threat that emerges. It sounds too good to be true, which means it probably is. What do you really want? Elowen asks. Nobody offers something for nothing, especially not someone with your kind of power. A slight smile touches Davorin's lips. Perceptive. You're right. I do want something beyond academic curiosity. What? Company. The word hangs between them, simple and complicated at once. I've lived for over 800 years, Ms. Hart. I've built empires and watched them crumble. I've loved and lost more times than I care to remember. And through it all, the constant reality is that everyone I know will age and die while I remain. Immortality is a lonely sentence. He moves to the window, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. But you, if you truly carry primordial blood, if you're what I think you are, you won't age, won't die. You'll walk through centuries the way I have. And perhaps, for the first time in a very long time, I won't have to watch someone I care about turn to dust. The honesty in his words catches her off guard. She expected manipulation, seduction, power plays, not this raw admission of loneliness that echoes her own fears about the endless years stretching before her. I don't know you, she says softly. No, he agrees, turning back to face her. But you could, if you wanted to. The offer hangs in the air between them, weighted with possibility and danger in equal measure. Elowen thinks about the last 10 years, the running, the hiding, the careful construction of temporary lives that she abandons before anyone gets close enough to notice her strange nature. The bone-deep loneliness of being perpetually other, perpetually alone. I need time, she says finally, to think, to process all of this. Of course. Davorin reaches into his jacket and withdraws a business card. Not the kind he probably hands out to business associates. This one is plain black with just a phone number in silver. My personal line. Call anytime, day or night. I'll answer. She takes the card, and their fingers brush. The contact sends a jolt through her that has nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the undeniable attraction she's been trying to ignore since he first paid attention to her. He feels it too. She can see it in the slight widening of his eyes, the way his breath catches almost imperceptibly. Go home, he says, his voice rougher than before. Take whatever time you need. But know that my offer stands, and my protection begins now. I'll ensure Celestine understands that you are under my direct protection. She won't bother you again. Thank you, Elowen whispers. She leaves the conference room on shaking legs, collects her things from her locker, and walks out of the Sterling Tower Cafe for what she knows will be the last time. The morning shift manager catches her on the way out, apologetic and clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. He offers her 2 weeks' severance and an excellent reference, which she accepts with numb gratitude. The subway ride back to her tiny studio apartment passes in a blur. She climbs the 4 flights of stairs to her door, lets herself in, and finally allows herself to collapse on the second-hand couch that came with the furnished rental. Her phone sits heavy in her pocket. The business card feels like it's burning through her jeans. For 3 days, she doesn't call. She goes through the motions of normal life, applying for new jobs, buying groceries, avoiding the news in case there's any mention of the incident at the cafe. At night, she lies awake and thinks about Davorin's words, about primordial blood and ancient lineages, and the possibility that she's not alone in this strange existence. About the loneliness in his eyes when he talked about immortality. On the 4th day, Elowen comes home to find her apartment door ajar. Her heart stops. She's been careful. Always careful. Triple checks the locks, never gives anyone a reason to notice her. But the door is definitely open, hanging loose on its hinges like someone kicked it in. She should call the police, should run, should do anything except what she does, which is step inside and call out, "Hello?" The apartment has been ransacked, her few possessions scattered, furniture overturned, papers everywhere. But it's not random destruction. Someone was looking for something. Looking methodically, carefully, with purpose. A note sits on her kitchen counter, held down by her favorite coffee mug. The paper is expensive, cream-colored, with elegant script written in what looks like real ink. "We know what you are. Come to the address below alone, or we'll ensure everyone else knows too. You have until midnight. Below the threat is an address in Brooklyn, a warehouse district, the kind of place where people go to disappear." Eloan's hands shake as she reads the note 3 times. It's not signed, but she doesn't need a signature to know. Celestine. Or someone working for Celestine. Someone who took Daverin's warning as a challenge rather than a deterrent. She looks at the time. 8:47 p.m., just over 3 hours until midnight. The smart thing would be to run. Pack a bag, drain her meager bank account, and vanish into the night. Start over in a new city with a new name like she's done before. But she's tired of running. So tired. And more than that, there's anger now, burning beneath the fear. Anger at being hunted, at being treated like a thing rather than a person, at spending a decade afraid of her own shadow. She pulls out her phone and the black business card. Daverin answers on the first ring. "Eloan." Hearing her first name in his voice does something to her chest. "I need help." "Where are you?" She tells him about the break-in, the note, the deadline, hears him curse softly in a language that sounds ancient and harsh. "Don't go to that address," he says, his voice sharp with command. "It's a trap. Celestine isn't working alone. She has her family's resources behind her, and the Moreaus have connections to vampire hunters. They'll take you, study you, and by the time they're done, there won't be anything left to save." "Then what do I do?" She hates how small her voice sounds. "Stay where you are. I'm coming to you." They said to come alone. They also said they'd expose you. They're going to do that regardless of whether you comply. At least this way, you have backup. A pause. "Trust me." It's too late for caution. Too late for carefully maintained distance. She gave up that option the moment she showed him her blood. "Okay," Eloan says. "I trust you." She hears something that might be relief in his exhale. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrives in 15. Eloan hears the footsteps in the hallway, too light, too measured to be human, and opens the door before he knocks. Daverin stands in the dingy hallway of her apartment building, looking like he stepped out of a different reality, still in a suit, but he's shed the tie, and there's something different about him now. Less civilized, more dangerous. His eyes scan her quickly, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No. I wasn't here when they broke in." He steps inside, and his presence fills the small space, makes her studio apartment feel even smaller. He examines the destruction with quick efficiency, his expression darkening. "They were looking for evidence," he says. "Documentation, diaries, medical records, anything to confirm what they suspect about you." "I don't keep records," Eloan says. "I learned early not to leave a paper trail." "Smart." He picks up the note, reads it, and something dangerous flickers across his face. The Moreaus have overreached. They don't understand what they're dealing with. "Do you?" "No," he admits. "But I know enough to recognize power when I see it. And I know that you don't deserve to be hunted like an animal." He pulls out his phone and makes a call, speaking in rapid French that Eloan can't follow. When he hangs up, he turns to her with decision in his eyes. "Pack a bag. Essential items only. You're coming with me." "Where?" "My home. It's secure, protected by wards and guards. They won't be able to reach you there." Eloan looks around her tiny apartment. Everything she owns fits into 2 suitcases and a backpack. The accumulation of 3 years in one place, which is the longest she's stayed anywhere since the change. It should be harder to leave. Should feel like more of a loss. Instead, it feels like relief. She packs quickly, efficiently. Clothes, toiletries, the few books she couldn't bear to leave behind, her laptop. Within 15 minutes, she's ready. Devoren takes her bags without being asked, carrying them like they weigh nothing. My car is downstairs. The car turns out to be a sleek black sedan with a driver who doesn't react to Elowen's appearance beyond a polite nod. They slide into the back seat, and the driver pulls smoothly into traffic. "What about the meeting?" Elowen asks. "The address they gave me." "I'm sending people to investigate. If they're foolish enough to be waiting there, they'll find themselves very disappointed." He glances at her. "Don't worry, my people won't kill anyone, just discourage future harassment." They drive through Manhattan and across the river, heading north into areas where the buildings get larger and farther apart, where walls replace chain-link fences, and money becomes increasingly visible in the architecture and landscaping. The Thorne estate sits behind stone walls and iron gates that open automatically as they approach. The house beyond is old, genuinely old, not renovated to look historical old. 3 stories of stone and wood that speaks of centuries rather than decades. "How long have you lived here?" Elowen asks as they pull up to the front entrance. "I built this house in 1847, Devoren says. "It's been updated over the years, but the bones remain the same." The interior is exactly what she expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Yes, there's luxury, expensive furniture, art that probably belongs in museums, details that speak of unlimited resources. But there's also warmth. Books everywhere, comfortable worn spots on the furniture, evidence of a space that's lived in rather than just displayed. A woman appears from a side hallway, middle-aged, human, with sharp eyes and an air of competent authority. "Mr. Thorne, your guest." "Elowen Hart, this is Petra Kowalski. She manages my household, and has been with me for 23 years. Devoren smiles slightly. She also knows everything about my nature, and can be trusted completely. Petra's expression warms. "Welcome, Ms. Hart. I've prepared the blue guest room for you. Would you like me to show you up?" "Thank you," Elowen says, gratitude overwhelming her. These strangers are offering her sanctuary, safety, and asking nothing in return. It's more than she's had in a decade. The blue guest room turns out to be larger than her entire studio apartment, with an attached bathroom and windows that overlook extensive gardens. Her bags are already there, placed neatly by the bed. "Dinner is in an hour if you're hungry," Petra says. "And if you need anything at all, there's an intercom by the bed. Just press the button and someone will respond." When Petra leaves, Elowen sits on the edge of the impossibly soft bed and finally lets herself shake. The adrenaline is wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and delayed shock. She came within hours of being kidnapped by vampire hunters, of being exposed, studied, possibly killed, and now she's in the home of a vampire king who says he wants to protect her. The absurdity of it all almost makes her laugh. A soft knock interrupts her spiral. Devoren's voice comes through the door. "Elowen, may I come in?" "Yes." He enters, and he's changed clothes. Gone is the corporate armor of the suit. Now he wears dark jeans and a simple black shirt that somehow makes him look more dangerous rather than less. More like what he actually is beneath the civilized veneer. "How are you holding up?" he asks. "I don't know," she admits. "This morning I was a waitress. Tonight I'm hiding in a vampire's mansion from people who want to dissect me. It's a lot." "I imagine it is." He sits in the chair near the window, keeping distance between them. "I got a report from my people. The warehouse was a trap, as suspected. They were waiting with silver chains and enough medical equipment to run a field laboratory." Elowen's stomach turns. Would that have worked? The silver? "I don't know. Silver affects vampires, but you're not a vampire. You're something else. Perhaps silver would have held you. Perhaps not. I'm grateful we didn't have to find out." His gray eyes study her. They also found something interesting. Documentation from the Moreau Family Research Division. They've been tracking unusual bloodlines for decades, collecting samples, building a database of supernatural genetics. Why? Power. Knowledge. The Moreaus made their fortune in diamonds, but their real wealth comes from selling information to both vampire and human factions. They position themselves as neutral brokers, but in reality, they're mercenaries who'll work for whoever pays the most. And Celestine is her father's daughter. She saw you as a curiosity, potentially valuable. When I defended you, that value increased. She decided you were worth pursuing. He leans forward, elbows on knees. I'm sorry. My protection made you a target. Your protection also saved me, Elowen says. If you hadn't noticed what I was, hadn't offered help, I'd be in that warehouse right now. They sit in silence for a moment. Then Davarin says, I meant what I said before, about company, about not wanting to be alone anymore. You've had Petra for 23 years. Petra is dear to me, but she ages. In another decade, maybe 2, she'll retire to the house I bought her in Vermont, and I'll attend her funeral eventually, and then she'll be another name on the long list of people I've cared about and lost to time. His voice is steady, but there's pain underneath. You don't understand yet. You're only 10 years into immortality. But someday you will. You'll watch everyone you know grow old and die while you remain. You'll learn to keep distance, to not get attached, because attachment means inevitable grief. That sounds lonely, Elowen says softly. It is, unbearably so. He looks at her directly. But you, if we're right about what you are, you won't die, won't age. You'll be here in 100 years, 200 years, 500 years. And maybe, just maybe, I won't have to be alone anymore. The honesty in his words breaks something open in Elowen's chest. I don't know how to be what you need. I don't need you to be anything except yourself. The rest, we'll figure out together. He stands. Rest. Tomorrow we'll start looking into your bloodline, into what you are. But tonight, you're safe. That's enough. He's at the door when she says, Davarin? He turns. Thank you for protecting me, for believing me, for... She struggles for words, for making me feel less alone. His smile is small but genuine. The pleasure, Elowen, is entirely mine. That night, Elowen sleeps better than she has in years. No nightmares, no waking in panic, checking to make sure no one has discovered her secret. Just deep, dreamless rest in a soft bed in a safe house with an ancient vampire keeping watch downstairs. The next 3 weeks fall into a rhythm. Mornings, Davarin teaches her about vampire society, the factions and families, the politics and power structures, the ancient laws that govern their world. Afternoons, they research. Old books from his extensive library, documents he has contacts acquire, genealogical records that stretch back centuries. They discover references to beings called progenitors, the first immortals, from whom both humans and vampires supposedly descended. According to legend, progenitor blood ran clear as moonlight and granted true immortality, not the conditional immortality of vampires who could be killed by stakes and sunlight. But the progenitors vanished thousands of years ago, and most modern vampires considered them myth. But if they were real, Davarin says one afternoon, books spread across the library table between them, and if you carry their blood, you might be the last of your kind, or the first of a new generation. Either way, you're unique. Lucky me, Elowen says dryly. They fall into other patterns too. Dinners together, sometimes just the two of them, sometimes with Petra joining. Walks through the extensive gardens, late-night conversations about philosophy and history, and the strange experience of existing outside normal human time. And through it all, the attraction between them grows. Little moments of contact, his hand on her lower back as they navigate the library stacks, her fingers brushing his as they pass books back and forth. Long looks that linger too long. Tension that builds like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Elowen knows she's falling for him, knows it's probably stupid and definitely dangerous. But after 10 years of isolation, The warmth of connection is intoxicating. One evening, they're in the garden as the sun sets. Davarin can tolerate sunlight, another sign of his age and power, but he prefers dusk. Says the shadows feel more honest. "Tell me about your human life," Elowen says. They're sitting on a stone bench near a fountain, close enough that she can feel the cool emanation of his presence. "Before you returned." He's quiet for a long moment. Then, "I was a soldier." This was the 13th century, when England and France were constantly at war. I was young, stupid, and convinced I was invincible. A bitter smile. Then I took an arrow in the gut during a siege, lay dying in a monastery, while monks prayed over me. That's when she came. Your maker? Vivian. She was old even then, and she said I had potential. Offered me a choice, die as a man, or live forever as something more. I chose immortality. He looks at the darkening sky. I've regretted it and been grateful for it in equal measure ever since. Do you ever wish you'd chosen differently? Every time I bury someone I love, and never when I witness something beautiful I would have missed if I'd died. He turns to look at her. Meeting you, for instance. Her breath catches. Davarin, I know. Too fast. Too intense. You barely know me. He reaches out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers linger against her cheek. But I've lived too long to waste time pretending I don't feel what I feel. You're extraordinary, Elowen. Not because of your blood, because of who you are. She should be careful, should protect herself, but she's so tired of protecting herself, of keeping everyone at arm's length. She leans into his touch. "Show me," she whispers. His eyes darken with hunger and something deeper. "Show you what?" "What it's like, being vampire. Being you. I've spent 10 years afraid of what I am. Show me what it means to embrace it." For a long moment he doesn't move. Then, with careful deliberation, he leans in. His lips brush hers, soft and cool and tasting of night and darkness and ancient mysteries. The kiss is gentle at first, questioning. She answers by pressing closer, her hands coming up to tangle in his hair. The gentleness evaporates. His arms come around her, pulling her against him with a strength that should be frightening, but instead feels like safety. The kiss deepens, and she tastes something metallic on his tongue. His fangs, extended now, sharp enough to cut. He pulls back immediately, breathing hard despite not needing to breathe. "Sorry. I should be more careful." "Don't be careful," Elowen says. "I'm not fragile. I heal, remember?" Something wild flickers in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "Yes." He kisses her again, and this time there's no restraint. His fangs catch her lower lip, drawing blood. The sting of it sends heat through her veins. She tastes her own blood, and she knows he must taste it too. That strange, opalescent shimmer that marks her as other. He groans against her mouth, and she realizes with a thrill that her blood affects him, makes him hungry, makes him want. They break apart, both breathing hard. Her lip is already healing, the cut closing seamlessly. Davarin watches with fascination. "Your blood," he says roughly. "It's intoxicating." "Is that a problem?" "It's dangerous. For both of us." But he doesn't let her go. His forehead rests against hers. "I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." "Then have me," Elowen says, emboldened by desire and safety in equal measure. "I'm right here." What happens next isn't rushed or frantic. Davorin takes her hand and leads her back inside, through the quiet house to his bedroom. It's the first time she's been in his private space, and it's both austere and intimate. Dark colors, heavy furniture, walls lined with books and artifacts from centuries of existence. He kisses her again in the dim light, his hands careful despite the hunger she can feel coiled in his body. They undress each other slowly, learning the topography of skin and muscle and scars. Though she has no scars, her skin unmarked and perfect from her supernatural healing. When he lays her on the bed, his body covering hers, cool against warm, she feels more present than she has in a decade. More real. More alive. "Are you certain?" he asks one more time. "Yes," she breathes. What follows is transcendent. The joining of two immortal beings. The dance of hunger and satisfaction. The strange beauty of their inhuman nature, expressed in physical form. His fangs find her throat, drawing blood that makes them both gasp. She tastes him in return, her teeth finding the pulse point at his neck, even though he has no pulse. And to her shock, her own fangs, small, delicate but unmistakably there, break through her gums for the first time. She gasps against his skin. "I didn't know I could—" "Shh," he soothes, even as his body shudders with pleasure. "Your progenitor blood. It's waking up, recognizing a compatible mate." They move together, blood and pleasure and connection intertwining until she can't tell where she ends and he begins. When completion crashes over them, it feels like something fundamental shifting in the universe. Like two puzzle pieces finally finding their match after centuries of searching. Afterward, they lie tangled together, her head on his chest where a heart should beat but doesn't. His fingers trace idle patterns on her skin. "Stay," he says quietly. "Not just tonight. Stay with me. Let me teach you what you are. Let me protect you. Let me—" He stops, then continues more vulnerably. "Let me love you." Alowan lifts her head to look at him. His gray eyes are serious, open, offering everything. "I'm still figuring out who I am," she says. "Still learning what this immortality means. I can't promise I'll be easy to love." "I've lived 800 years, Devoren says. "Easy is overrated. Stay anyway." She thinks about the last 10 years. The running, the hiding, the loneliness. Then she thinks about the last 3 weeks. The safety, the companionship, the slow building of something that might be love, or might be the recognition of kindred spirits in an immortal world. "Okay," she whispers. "I'll stay." His smile transforms his face, making him look younger, more human. He pulls her close and kisses her forehead. "Thank you." They fall asleep as dawn breaks, or rather, she sleeps while he holds her, keeping watch like he has for weeks now, keeping her safe. 3 months later, everything changes. Alowan has settled into life at the Thorn estate. She's learned to control her emerging abilities, the fangs that extend when she feeds, the enhanced strength and speed, the rapid healing that marks her as progenitor-born. She's also learned that she can consume regular food or blood with equal ease, making her more versatile than pure vampires who need blood to survive. Devoren has been teaching her to defend herself, insisting that immortality means nothing if she can't protect it. She's discovered she's a natural fighter, her body remembering movements she's never learned, as if the progenitor blood carries muscle memory from ancestors long dead. They're in the training room, a converted ballroom in the estate's east wing, when Petra interrupts. "Mr. Thorne, you have visitors. The Moreau family has sent representatives to request an audience." Devoren's expression hardens. "Tell them—" "With respect, sir, I think you should take the meeting. They've brought the council." Elowen sees Devoren's jaw tighten. "The High Council?" "Yes, sir. 3 members. They're waiting in the formal receiving room." The High Council, Elowen has learned, is Vampire Society's governing body. Ancient, powerful, and absolutely not to be ignored. "Get dressed," Devoren tells Elowen. Something formal. "If the council is here, this is official business." 20 minutes later, Elowen walks into the formal receiving room wearing a dress that Petra produced from somewhere. Deep green silk that makes her eyes look even more vivid. Devoren is beside her in a suit that emphasizes his authority. Every inch the Vampire King. The room is crowded. 3 individuals sit in the high-backed chairs reserved for honored guests, 2 men and 1 woman, all radiating the particular stillness of truly ancient vampires. Standing behind them are 2 people Elowen recognizes. Celestine Moreau and an older man who must be her father, his resemblance too strong to be coincidence. Celestine's eyes narrow when she sees Elowen. So, the rumors are true. You're keeping her. Ms. Hart is under my protection, Davorin says coolly, as I made clear to you months ago. Yes, well. The older Moreau, Marcel, Elowen has learned, steps forward. That protection is precisely why we've brought this matter before the council. Mr. Thorne, you are harboring a being of unknown origin and unprecedented power, without registering her with the proper authorities. This is a violation of the covenant. One of the council members speaks, the woman whose black hair is threaded with silver and whose eyes are so dark they look like voids. Davorin Thorne, you stand accused of concealing a progenitor born from council registration. How do you answer? I acknowledge that Elowen Hart carries progenitor blood, Davorin says, his voice steady. And I acknowledge that I have not registered her, but the covenant was written to protect vampire society from dangerous unknowns. Elowen is not dangerous. She is simply trying to understand what she is. That is not for you to determine alone, another council member says, the younger-looking man with sharp features. Progenitor blood has not been seen in 3,000 years. Its emergence now could signal significant changes to the balance of power. The council must assess her, determine her capabilities, and decide how she fits into our society. Elowen's heart pounds. This is exactly what she's feared, being treated as a thing to be assessed and categorized rather than a person with autonomy. And if I refuse assessment? She asks, her voice clearer than she feels. The council members look at her with varying expressions of surprise. Apparently, they expected her to be silent. Refusal is not an option, the third council member says, an older man with white hair and eyes like chips of ice. You are subject to our laws whether you accept them or not. Even though I didn't choose this? Didn't ask to become what I am? Origin is irrelevant, the ice-eyed counselor says. You exist as a supernatural being. Therefore, you fall under our jurisdiction. She's not a vampire, Davorin says, his voice taking on an edge. The council has authority over vampires. But progenitor-born predate vampire society. Your laws don't apply to her. An interesting argument, the woman counselor says, but incorrect. The covenant explicitly includes all beings of immortal blood. That encompasses her. Elowen feels the trap closing. She looks at Davorin and sees frustration and calculation in his eyes. He's trying to find a way out, but the council has prepared their case too well. There is, however, an alternative, Marcel Moreau says smoothly. A way to resolve this that satisfies all parties. I'm sure you have a proposal, Davorin says coldly. The Moreau family has extensive research facilities and expertise in supernatural genetics. We propose that Ms. Hart comes to stay with us for a period of study, 6 months perhaps. We'll examine her abilities, document her bloodline, and provide the council with a comprehensive report. In exchange, Ms. Hart receives answers about her origins, and everyone's concerns about safety and knowledge are addressed. It's wrapped in reasonable language, but Elowen hears the real message. They want to take her, study her. 6 months in a Moreau facility, surrounded by people who see her as a specimen rather than a person. Absolutely not, Davorin says flatly. It's not your decision, Celestine speaks for the first time, her voice honey-sweet with malice. The council has the authority to place her where they see fit. The woman counselor raises a hand. Let us not be hasty. Mr. Thorne, you clearly have feelings for Ms. Hart. That much is evident. But your personal attachment cannot supersede the needs of our society. We require knowledge of what she is and what she's capable of. Then I'll provide that knowledge, Davorin says. I have resources equal to the Moreaus. I can conduct research, document everything, report to the council regularly. There's no need for Elowen to leave my protection. Your objectivity is compromised, the ice-eyed counselor says. You care for her. You would hide or minimize anything you discovered that might place her at risk. And the Moreaus wouldn't? Elowen speaks up again, anger overriding fear. They broke into my apartment. They tried to kidnap me. They don't want knowledge. They want to own me. Careful, girl, Marcel Moreau says, his friendly mask slipping to show something cold beneath. Accusations against my family require proof. I have proof, Davorin says. Documentation from the warehouse trap you set. Equipment purchased through your research division. Paper trails that lead directly back to Moreau funding. Circumstantial, Marcel dismisses. But even if true, it doesn't change the fundamental issue. The council requires assessment of the progenitor-born. The only question is who conducts that assessment. The council members exchange glances, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Then the woman speaks. We propose a compromise. Ms. Hart will undergo assessment, but it will be conducted by neutral parties chosen by the council. Not the Moreaus. Not Mr. Thorne. Independent researchers who will provide unbiased results. It's better than being handed to the Moreaus, but it's still a cage. Still being treated as a thing rather than a person with rights. And if I just leave? Elowen asks. If I walk out of here and disappear? I did it for 10 years before. I can do it again. Then you become a fugitive, the ice-eyed counselor says coldly, and we hunt you. Our reach is long, Ms. Hart. There is nowhere in this world you could hide that we wouldn't eventually find you. And when we did, you would face significantly harsher consequences than simple assessment. Trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. Elowen looks at Davorin and sees the same recognition in his eyes. He's powerful, but he's not more powerful than the entire council. Not when they're determined. How long? She asks quietly. This assessment, how long would it take? 3 months, the woman counselor says. Perhaps less if you're cooperative. And then? Then you're free. Well, not precisely free. You'll be registered, monitored periodically, expected to report significant developments in your abilities, but you can resume your life. A life under surveillance, forever marked as other, as dangerous, as something to be watched. But still better than the alternatives they're threatening. Elowen takes a deep breath. I have conditions. Surprise flickers across several faces. Apparently, they expected her to simply submit. I choose where the assessment takes place. Somewhere neutral, not a council facility or a Moreau property. Somewhere I feel safe. She looks at Davorin. Here, at the Thorne estate. Your independent researchers can come here. I'll cooperate fully, but I'm not leaving. The council members exchange looks again. Then the woman nods slowly. That's acceptable, provided Mr. Thorne agrees not to interfere with the research. I won't interfere, Davorin says. But I will be present. Elowen is under my protection. That doesn't change regardless of council mandates. More silent communication. Then the ice-eyed counselor says, Agreed. We'll send our researchers within the week. Ms. Hart, you will cooperate fully and honestly with all assessments. Mr. Thorne, you will provide access to your facilities and resources. Are these terms acceptable to all parties? It's not really a question, but at least Elowen isn't being dragged away to a Moreau laboratory. At least she gets to stay somewhere that feels like home, with someone she trusts beside her. Acceptable, she says. Acceptable, Davorin echoes. Marcel Moreau looks displeased but knows better than to argue with a council decision. He and Celestine take their leave with barely concealed frustration. When they're gone, and the council members have departed with promises to send the research team soon, Elowen finally lets herself collapse into one of the formal chairs. Well, she says with shaky humor, that was terrifying. Davorin kneels beside her chair, taking her hands. You were magnificent. Standing up to the council like that. Demanding conditions rather than simply submitting. I learned from the best, she says, squeezing his fingers. You've been teaching me for months that power respects power, that showing weakness just invites more demands. Still, you were brave. He lifts her hand to his lips, kisses her knuckles gently. And I promise I will be here through every moment of this assessment. They won't hurt you, won't push too far. Not while I'm watching. I know, she says softly. I trust you. The research team arrives 5 days later. 3 vampires and 2 humans, all with impressive credentials in supernatural biology and ancient bloodline research. They set up equipment in one of the estate's unused wings and begin their work. It's invasive, but not cruel. Blood samples, tissue samples, ability tests, hours of questions about her history, her transformation, her experiences. They document everything with scientific precision, and while Elowen chafes under the constant observation, she reminds herself it could be so much worse. Davarin keeps his promise. He's present for every test, every sample, every question. When the researchers push too hard, he steps in with quiet authority. When Elowen needs a break, he ensures she gets one regardless of protest. 6 weeks into the 3-month assessment, the lead researcher, a vampire named Dr. Serena with kind eyes and gentle hands, calls them both into her temporary laboratory. I wanted to share some preliminary findings, she says, gesturing to screens covered in data that means nothing to Elowen. Your blood is extraordinary, Ms. Hart. It carries markers we've only seen in texts describing progenitor biology. But there's something else, something we didn't expect. What? Elowen asks. Your blood is evolving, adapting. Every sample we take shows slight variations from the previous one, as if your body is still figuring out what it is. Dr. Serena pulls up images that look like microscopic photographs. See these cells? They're changing structure in response to stimuli. When we expose them to sunlight, they develop protective barriers. When we introduce vampire blood, they develop complementary markers. Your blood is incredibly versatile. What does that mean? Davorin asks. It means, Ms. Hart is more than just progenitor born. She's a bridge. Her blood could theoretically adapt to bond with any supernatural species. Vampire, werewolf, fae, anything. She's the missing link we always theorized existed, but never found evidence for. Elowen's mind reels. A bridge to what? To unity, Dr. Serena says, excitement clear in her voice. Ancient texts speak of progenitors as the common ancestors of all supernatural beings. If your blood can adapt and bond across species lines, you represent the possibility of reconnecting what was divided, creating alliances, even creating new bloodlines that combine traits from multiple origins. In other words, Davorin says slowly, she's incredibly valuable and incredibly vulnerable. Dr. Serena's excitement dims. Yes, I'm afraid so. When I report these findings to the council, they'll understand the implications. You'll become a target for anyone seeking power through bloodline manipulation. Can we hide this? Elowen asks. Just not report it? I'm bound by oath to report all findings accurately, Dr. Serena says with genuine regret. But I can frame it carefully. Emphasize the theoretical nature of these abilities. Stress that your blood requires your consent to bond, that forcing it would likely fail or backfire. Will that be enough? Elowen looks at Davarin. No, he says bluntly, but it might buy us time to prepare. That night, lying in Davarin's bed with his arms around her, Elowen allows herself to feel the fear she's been suppressing. I thought finding answers would make things better, she whispers into the darkness. But knowing what I am just makes me more of a target. Knowledge is power, Davorin says. Even when it's frightening. Now we know what we're dealing with. We can prepare. How do you prepare for becoming everyone's favorite prize? He's quiet for a long moment. Then, we make you too costly to pursue. We build alliances, demonstrate strength. Make it clear that anyone who tries to take you will face consequences they can't afford. That sounds like war. Diplomacy, preferably. But yes, if necessary, war. His arms tighten around her. You're mine, Elowen. I claimed you months ago, even if I haven't said it formally, and I protect what's mine. She turns in his arms to face him. Is that what I am? Property? No. His gray eyes are serious in the dim light. You're my mate, my equal, my choice, and my future. But in vampire society, those bonds are formalized through claiming, through public declaration of protection and partnership. I've been waiting for the right moment. But perhaps, he touches her face gently, perhaps the right moment is before the council rules on your status, before anyone else can try to claim rights over you. Elowen's heart pounds. You want to formally claim me in front of vampire society? I want to marry you in human terms, bond with you in vampire terms, make it absolutely clear that you stand under the protection of the Thorn bloodline, with all the power and resources that entails. Make you untouchable. It's not the most romantic proposal, driven by pragmatism and protection rather than pure emotion. But there's love in his eyes, real and deep, and the thought of belonging to him, choosing him as permanently as he's choosing her, fills her with warmth. Yes, she says, let's do it. His smile transforms his face. He kisses her deeply, thoroughly, and she tastes the promise in it, the commitment, the claim. 2 weeks later, the Thorn estate is filled with vampires. Davarin has called a formal gathering, the first he's hosted in decades, to announce his claiming of Elowen. The guest list includes the High Council, representatives from major bloodlines, and carefully selected allies who've indicated support for Devorin's position. The Moreaus are also present, because excluding them would be interpreted as fear. Celestine looks like she's been forced to swallow glass, her expression brittle with fury, barely contained beneath a mask of civility. Elowen stands beside Davarin in the grand ballroom, wearing a dress the color of midnight that Petra spent weeks arranging for. It's beautiful and elegant, and makes her feel like she belongs in this world of ancient power and supernatural politics. Dr. Serena has completed her assessment. The report is ready to be delivered to the council tonight, along with Davarin's announcement. 2 revelations that will reshape how vampire society views Elowen. The woman counselor, whose name Elowen has learned is Anastasia, calls the gathering to order with the kind of effortless authority that comes from centuries of practice. We are here for 2 purposes, Anastasia announces to the assembled vampires. First, to receive the research findings regarding the progenitor-born female under Davarin Thorn's protection. Second, to witness a formal claiming. Dr. Serena, please present your findings. Dr. Serena steps forward, and for the next 20 minutes, she delivers her report. Scientific language and careful framing, just as she promised. But even softened, the implications are clear. Elowen is unique, powerful, potentially the key to bloodline evolution and cross-species bonding. Whispers ripple through the crowd, speculation and hunger in equal measure. Elowen feels the weight of dozens of eyes, calculating her value, considering possibilities. Then Davarin steps forward, and the whispers die. As you've heard, he says, his voice carrying easily through the large space, Elowen Hart is extraordinary. Her blood carries potential we've only theorized about for millennia. Many of you are wondering how this affects you, how you might gain access to her abilities. Let me be absolutely clear. His gray eyes scan the crowd, cold and dangerous. You won't. Because tonight I formally claim Elowen Hart as my mate, my consort, and my equal. She is blood of my blood, protected by the Thorn name and resources. Any threat to her is a threat to me. Any attempt to use her, manipulate her, or harm her will be met with the full force of my retaliation. The declaration lands like a stone in still water, sending ripples of reaction through the crowd. Marcel Moreau steps forward, his expression carefully neutral. Mr. Thorn, with all respect, such a claim requires the lady's consent. Perhaps we should hear from Ms. Hart herself whether she accepts this bond. It's a challenge, an attempt to create doubt, to suggest Elowen might be coerced, smart, politically, even if untrue. Elowen steps forward to stand beside Davorin, takes his hand, lacing their fingers together in full view of everyone present. I accept, she says clearly, freely and completely. Davarin Thorn has protected me when no one else would, has treated me as a person rather than a commodity, has offered me partnership rather than ownership. I choose him as he has chosen me. She sees Celestine flinch as if struck, sees calculations happening behind dozens of eyes as vampires recalibrate their plans around this new reality. Anastasia steps forward. The council recognizes this claiming. Alawan Hart is now under the formal protection of the Thorn bloodline, with all rights and privileges that entails. She looks directly at Alawan. Ms. Hart, do you understand what you're accepting? You will be bound by vampire law, subject to council authority, expected to comport yourself according to our society's standards. I understand, Alawan says, and I accept those obligations. Then let it be witnessed and recorded. Davarin Thorn and Alawan Hart are now bonded under the laws of our kind. There should be more ceremony, probably, ritual and ancient words. But Anastasia clearly wants this concluded before anyone can raise further objections. She's supporting Davarin's claim, Alawan realizes, perhaps because his proposal of keeping Alawan at the estate has proven successful, or perhaps because she genuinely believes this outcome serves the council's interests. Either way, it's done. Davarin turns to Alawan and kisses her in front of the assembled vampires. It's not a gentle kiss. It's a claiming, a promise, a public declaration of possession and partnership. When they break apart, she sees satisfaction in his eyes and feels something settle into place in her chest. She's not alone anymore, not running, not hiding. She stands in a room full of dangerous immortals as one of them, protected and powerful, and partnered with someone who sees her as an equal. The gathering dissolves into the social mixing that apparently follows formal vampire events. Vampires approach to offer congratulations, some genuine, some clearly strategic. Alawan handles them with the poise Davarin has been coaching her on, gracious but not naive, friendly but not foolish. Celestine approaches late in the evening when the crowd has thinned. She's clearly been drinking, blood cocktails that Alawan has learned are popular in